If your home just experienced a fire, one of the first questions people will start asking you is, are you going to rebuild? And most homeowners say yes almost automatically because it's familiar, it's what you're supposed to do, right? But here's the thing. That decision deserves more thought than it usually gets, because there are two real paths in front of you, and each one comes with a very different set of trade-offs financially, emotionally, and in terms of your time. So today I want to walk you all through both. Not to tell you which one to choose, but to make sure you actually understand what each path involves before you commit to one. My name is Louis Swan, and I work in the fire damage space, and I've seen both of these decisions play out many times. Some homeowners rebuild, and it's exactly the right call. Others sell, and they never look back, literally. There is no universal right answer here. What I want to give you today is a clear, honest picture of both options so you can make the decision for yourself. So, welcome, and hopefully you find this as insightful as possible. So let's continue here. Every homeowner dealing with fire damage is really looking at two paths. Path one, rebuild. You work with your insurance company, hire a contractor, go through the permitting process, and restore the home back to a livable condition. Path two is selling your property as is. You sell the property in its current fire damage state, typically to a cash buyer who specializes in this type of property, and you walk away without managing a rebuild. So as you can see on this slide, both are completely valid options. Both come with the real benefits and real trade-offs. So let's look at each one honestly, right? So let's start with the rebuild path. And specifically, the one thing that surprises homeowners the most is the timeline. A typical fire damage rebuild takes anywhere from 6 months to well over a year. And that's not worst case scenario, that's average. The range really depends on the extent of the damage, your contractor's availability, permitting timelines in your area, and whether any unexpected issues come up once work begins, which they usually do. The major time factors are permitting, which can add weeks to months before a contractor can even start work. Contractor availability, since specialized fire restoration contractors are often booked out, and material lead times for certain restoration materials. So as you can see on this slide, 6 to 18 months is a realistic window for most homeowners, knowing that going in changes how you plan everything, right? Just being aware of this. So beyond the timeline, there are costs that catch homeowners off guard. So the first is the depreciation holdback. Your insurance pays ACV, which is the actual cash value up front, but holds back a portion until the repairs are complete and verified. So that gap means you may need to front some costs before you see the full payout. The second is code upgrades. So if your home is older, your city may require the rebuild to meet current building codes. So updated wiring, insulation, fire suppression systems. These upgrades often aren't fully covered by your insurance policy. So that's very important to keep in mind. Third are the hidden damages. So once contractors open up the walls, they frequently find smoke penetration, water damage from firefighting, and structural issues that weren't necessarily visible from the outside. So each of which can add to the scope and the cost. And finally is the extended ALE. So if your rebuild runs past the limit of your additional living expenses coverage, you're paying hotel and living costs out of your pocket. So as you can see on this slide, none of these are reasons to not rebuild, but they're things to budget for and plan for before you start rebuilding. Okay. So Now let's quickly look at the sell as is path with the same level of honesty. So selling a fire damaged property as is means selling in its current condition, typically to a cash buyer, a real estate investor, or a company that specializes in fire damaged properties. The sale will reflect the damage, right? So meaning it'll be lower than the property would be worth if it was fully restored. The primary advantages are speed and simplicity, right? A cash sale on a fire damaged property can often close in as little as 2 weeks. There's no permitting, no managing contractors, and no waiting for insurance holdbacks. The trade-off is financial. So you're not going to get full market value for your property. What you gain in speed and simplicity, you give up in final sale price compared to what a fully rebuilt home would be worth. So as you can see on this slide, the decision often comes down to what you value more. Maximizing your financial return over a longer timeline, or getting certainty and resolution faster at a lower number. All right. So how do you actually think through this? Here are 4 questions I typically walk homeowners through and our clients through. The first question is, can your finances absorb a rebuild that runs longer or costs more than your insurance covers, right? This is about whether you have the reserves or access to credit to bridge any gaps. If the answer is no, the rebuild path carries real financial risk for you. The second question I typically ask is, do you have the bandwidth to manage a major construction project right now? This is probably the main question I ask, and the main question I really listen for and communicate to my sellers, because this is very important. And we have a lot of sellers start the rebuild process and come back to sell as is months, like 3 to 4 months into the project, because they didn't realize this question or ask themselves this question. So managing a rebuild while displaced is essentially a part-time job. If you're already stretched, work, family, other obligations, this is something to be honest about. Question number 3 is, how strong is your attachment to this specific structure versus the neighborhood, the location, or a fresh start? Some homeowners are deeply tied to the home itself, and others realize what they value in the area is the area, which they can find elsewhere, right? And question 4, which is another question that we really hone in on, is, do you have a vetted contractor, a clear scope of work, and a realistic budget? Going into a rehab without these 3 things in place is one of the most common predictors of a project going over time and over budget, right? So, as you can see on this slide, none of these questions have a right answer. It's really just being honest with yourself when making this decision, right? So, both paths are legitimate. Both can be the right choice depending on your situation. The goal of this video was to simply, just educate you all and make sure you have the full picture before you decide on exactly what you want to do. Not just a picture of your contractor. Your contractor gives you because they want to secure a job, and not just a picture your insurance company gives you, right? If you want to walk through your specific situation, whether that's understanding what a realistic rebuild would look like for your property, or what it might look like in its as-is value, what an offer may look like. As mentioned, as always, please check out our sites, House Fire Solutions, Fire Cash Buyer, and please schedule a 15-minute consult with me if you'd like to go that route as well. And I can speak to you, and we can see if there's something that myself and our company can do. No pressure, no obligation. Just real conversations. And I will say, for some of you I appreciate you reaching out. We do have a specific criteria that we look for when assisting clients and giving advice, because we want to bring you all as much value as possible. So please reach out, and I'll let you know if I can help you, or if our company can as well. So if this was helpful, please feel free to subscribe. If you know a friend or a peer going through something like this, or if you are, I'm going to try to continue to publish as much content as possible, but really appreciate you checking this out. Once again, my name is Louis Swan. Take care.